I'm excited to have back April Shippy here with an intentional money coaching. It's been a while, and we're kind of shifting gears from Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We're so grateful for everybody who partnered with us. As you know, we've exceeded our goal, and so now we're thinking about the holidays and um, want to provide some tips today on maybe how you can make this holiday enjoyable.
Mhm.
Um, Even though you're financially, a lot of times as a single mom, it's very daunting and it's financially strapping as you face the holidays. So we hope
Mhm.
today's interview will be an encouragement to you. So, April, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I am April Shippy. I'm actually out of Orlando, Florida, and it's hot down here. I hear it's cool off in other parts of the country. I was
Yes.
like, maybe I'll wear like a little something to cozy, but it's so hot. I couldn't pull it off. but so I work with intentional money coaching. I work with women who are coming out of abusive situations who need to like gain their confidence back or just learn how to do a budget or learn, I am capable of making decisions and,
Mhm.
those kind of foundational pieces of getting back on your feet, of just walking through how do I make a decision about my money. And money is sometimes really scary, and just trying to walk through and work through some of that trauma and identify things that could be holding back, but try to reframe and get everybody moving in the right direction and feeling more confident.
Yes, and I'm excited for today's topic and learning from this. And it's something we haven't really gone into before. So I'm hopeful this will be all new information. And even if you've been through several seasons as a single mother, I hope you learn something new today.
Mhm.
Um, so we'll go ahead and get started. Our first question is, what are practical ways we can save during the holiday season?
This has always been interesting for me. I run across years ago, somebody recommended to me making ornaments together with your kids. So, and this could be if you have crafty kids, if you're a crafty person, you have crafts already, then use your crafts. But this one has a thing where you can just print out and color. So you don't have to have the craft supplies, because I never was the crafty mom. I tried real hard because that's what you're supposed to do or whatever.
Yes.
But that just wasn't me, and I tried and I spent lots of money on it. But then so I'm just saying, if you're not crafty, it's not worth spending the money on the crafts. Just some
Yes.
crayons, printable paper, it'll you get the same story, and that kind of thing is totally fine. But there's a website called Truth in the Tinsel, and it just walks through the Christmas story through using, a little bit of the Bible verses at a time. I can't remember which book of the Bible. I'm guessing John, but I'm not sure. It's been a while since I did it. I need to pull it out. But they have downloadable, printable ornaments that you can color that goes along with that story that you read for that day. So there's a, like I think it starts December 1st and goes till Christmas. So it's kind of like an advent calendar thing, but working with while your kids are coloring, if you're able to like read the story or just kind of give a highlight of what this means depending on their age. Sometimes they're not going to listen to the whole story, and it's not very long, but it kind of gives them, and then they have something they can hang on the tree. So instead of going out, I always liked as a mom having the kids handmade ornaments on the
Yeah.
tree. And so I would go to whatever store after Christmas was over and buy their crafts, their Christmas crafts, so that I'd have them on hand for next year. So like the paper chains or whatever,
Hmm.
I just buy those after Christmas or real close to Christmas so that they'd be cheaper, and just have those and different ornaments, and just found these printable ones, and then they have it invested. That way they're not knocking stuff off and breaking it, and it's not so
Yeah.
stressful. But depends on the age of your kids too. That could be an option of like actually, instead of spending money on decorations, you could,
Hmm.
spend a little bit of money on I think it's like $20 for the ebook and the printables. And then you can have like a whole bunch of, you can print them out, like how many kids you have. And then you have a whole bunch of ornaments, and they have their section on the tree if you want, or however, and then decorate it with handmade stuff. Um,
I love that. Yeah. And those will be cherishable for years to come, too.
Yeah, and like write their names and the age or year or whatever on the back, and then you can bring those out next year. Or um, some people do, they go to the craft store and they make an ornament, like a family ornament every year. And so that could start to turn into a tradition where you're making ornaments together. And
Yes.
so that one, traditions I feel like are a really big deal, but you don't have to spend a lot of money on traditions. The traditions that are impactful are the things you remember doing together as a family every year. And
Yes.
so just being mindful that traditions, holidays, it was never meant, celebrating Jesus's birth was never meant to be a financial burden.
Mm,
A lot of that desire in our hearts is there. It could be there as a placing instead of for trauma. Like you were not allowed to do things, a normal family should be able to do, or, you were very restricted in what you could spend. And so if you're a single mom, not under that burden anymore, but you still have that trauma of those voices in your head telling you, well, you still can't do whatever, XYZ, whatever those words are saying. It's important to be genuinely curious and not be condemning yourself, or I shouldn't be this way. If you find yourself saying should, we need to ask yourself why you're saying should. Like, I shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be something you say to yourself. But
yes.
being curious, is this a trauma response? Am I just following along with what culture says I need to do? Because we're bombarded with stuff all the time too. So
Mm,
um, the kids and you could make cards, homemade cards out of construction paper for the nursing home or the neighbors, or, just something to be able to give back, but give them a creative outlet. Depending on their age, they could go deliver with you or something. I don't know how open nursing homes are, but I think some allow like Christmas carols or play
yeah.
puzzles with the residents. I don't know, but then you can just, and then I guess more practical for those people who are buying something. There's a website, Becoming Minimalist. um, they have a article about asking yourself questions before you make purchases. And I had a friend send me the link to that, and she's like, "This was life changing for me." And I was like, well, "That's kind of how my brain works when before kids, at least, And then kids like, I want this. I'm like, fine, just stop asking questions or whatever, But there's like a process that you can go through and start asking yourself questions to slow down your impulse to buy, to make sure that you don't regret it later. It takes practice. It takes
Hmm.
having grace for yourself. It's not going to be a perfectly executed thing the first time you try it, but those are kind of some things. I think saving money is a lot of changing our expectations for what the holiday is, getting back to what's realistic for your family, and creating those memories and traditions in a way that's not causing further stress on the family too.
Yes. No, that's all really good stuff. I love that. What's the name of the place that you can get the questions for?
It's called truthinthetinsel.com. So like the tinsel, the shiny stuff, the decorations,
I will look that.
TINSEL.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm dropping that in here. And you said
Okay.
that's where the questions are too?
That's where like the Bible story for the Christmas story is with the ornaments. The questions are on the becomingminimalist.com. They just have a lot of resources already available. Um, and they have, like, if you Google like Christmas, they'll have
That. Ooh,
suggestions about Christmas too. And we'll kind of touch on some of those ideas too in a little bit.
yes, I need to. Oh, what in the world? I need to respell that, everybody. I accidentally hit an in there and becoming. I can spell becoming. Sorry. We'll add that on later.
Yeah.
So
It's hard
we'll
to
move on
talk
to the
and
next
type
question.
and all the
I was
things.
trying to do it quickly and I was like, oh wait, that was an M, whatever.
Yeah.
So okay, what are some shortcuts to being able to provide gifts for children?
This one was interesting. It depends a lot. I feel like what community you're in. So not everyone's going to have a community or a church community that's supportive, or a mom group or something like that. But if that is something that you are involved in, a lot of times, like, the moms will, you're in a group together with similarly aged kids, and kids grow out of their toys so quickly, and they're like perfect condition most of the time, or if they're a little beat up or whatever, they still play fine. It could be something that the moms could bring like 1 to 3 unused toys from their house, and then whatever other mom can take those home and use those for gifts, or having
Oh,
something
I
an
love that idea.
exchange. And maybe have
Yeah.
like a potluck or something where it's the moms get together and they exchange the toys that the kids aren't playing with anymore. And
Oh, yeah. That's an awesome idea.
so that
Oh,
could
I
be,
love that.
it doesn't have to be with church, or just maybe a neighborhood thing. If you notice there's a lot of kids your age, it's finding those other families similarly aged. But then along that line, even for the older kids, it's not necessarily, we don't want them on technology all the time, or whatever it is that they have access to that they're already on all the time. So maybe it's having like 2 or 3 other moms, and one of them's really good at baking. So maybe they can teach the kids how to bake cookies, Christmas cookies or something, and that be part of their, become a tradition of, you're learning a skill in a play date environment, but that could be their gift of, look,
Mhm.
we're going to go learn whatever this stuff, or teaching them how to change the oil, or just showing like opening the hood of the car and showing like, wow, what's this cool stuff in here? And just getting them more comfortable
Yeah.
with things, but in a way that's, you're focused on learning together, and creating traditions again. Learning how to change a tire. You maybe not actually do it, but you can talk them through, depending on their age, of these are kind of things that we're going to need to do, know how to do in the future. But let's make it kind of more fun with doing it with a group of friends or something. Um, or like serving in the homeless shelter or food bank. Like, we have a local food bank that, you have to be a certain age to volunteer there. But if they're a certain age, the food bank, there's the ones that actually hand the food out to people, and then there's the centralized food bank where the smaller food banks come get their food from. And so maybe it's volunteering at that bigger centralized food bank if, there's concerns about being in touch with more community, like if there's some trauma around something, you just don't want to, there's different levels of how you can still serve the community and maybe not be face to face, because sometimes that can be, for different people, different situations. Or sometimes you want to be face to face. You want your kids to see the faces of the people that, that we're, this is the reason for the season, is to give back and show God's love to others. And, this is a way we can do it as a family.
Mhm.
And I think I might have had, oh, and this is like those cashback apps I think we talked about last time. I mean, that it's dollars here and there sometimes, but if you're buying stuff online, that Rakuten, Rakuten, is a, been around for years and years and years, and it's widely used by lots of different retailers. Um, they give cash back depending, and sometimes they have giver, you know, 10% back. Sometimes it's a 3% back. It depends. So if you're online shopping, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of apps. There's the Upside app. There's Ibotta. There's Fetch Rewards. There's a couple of them I haven't tried yet myself, but they're legitimate. They have been around for years, and you get the cash back in a way that you can get it in like your bank account, or in a gift card for a place that you'll actually shop at, or something like that, to where you can reduce spending, saving money that way. Or you can do like, buy, if you want to buy the gifts, make categories of, buy something they can read, buy something they need,
Yeah.
buy something they want, that kind of thing. Just like one gift per, because I remember growing up, we had like 2 or 3 gifts, and that was totally fine. Like, I didn't know anything different. Um, and now it's like this expectation of, you have to have 15 gifts and everyone has to have the same amount. And, like this, it's starting to get into that, whose whose narrative are we following here, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Um, And then just kind of rethinking Christmas, like dig deeper. Why is there a strong pull to spend the money? Why do you feel like Christmas will only be okay if I can spend $500 or whatever, this big Christmas thing? Because what is that pull? So just trying to figure out for you, slow it down and be curious about, why do I feel so strongly about this, or some other feeling you're feeling strongly about. And just trying to see if that's something like a counselor could help you walk through, or it's just the realization of, oh my goodness, that's what this is.
Hmm.
Okay. And that can sometimes, just naming it can take some of that sting off of that big pull.
Yes. And I think sometimes too, as mothers, and when your children have been through a lot, you kind of want to overindulge and not overindulge in a bad way, but you just want to make up for what's not there at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, like, you're a single family home or their dad's not present or whatever the situation is, you feel like, oh, I just want to make up and make their Christmas extremely happy. But I think sometimes our children value us. We forget more than they value the toys and the trinkets we give them. It's
Yeah.
they value time with us. And if we're stressing ourselves out by overworking ourselves so we can provide for them and we miss quality time with them, they're going to look back someday and the toys are going to be gone, but they're going to miss the moments and memories they could have had with you.
Uh-huh.
So I've done that's really helped me is just focusing on giving experiences
Yeah.
to my at Christmas and like picking one thing that is an experience. And that way she and I have that as a memory forever. And
Mhm.
that stays in our mind every single year is something
Mhm.
exciting. It doesn't have to be expensive. Maybe we just went to Starbucks and got hot chocolate and
Yeah.
rode around Christmas lights all night. Yes, it's costing me
Yeah.
$10 a class, but that's something we look forward to every single year. And
Yeah.
I would rather do that and give less gifts and be able to say this is etched in our minds and forever.
Yeah, that goes right into my next one.
Oh, good.
Good
I
needed.
know that's still your stuff.
No, it's perfect.
Okay,
Um,
good.
so the next question is,
Oh, yes. So the next question is, let's keep going here. How can we adjust expectations of ourselves to help us get greater joy
but
from the
like
holiday?
what you were saying was super practical, how you were working with that in yourself, with your family, and how you were realizing how important that is. Like you said, it's we don't want to band-aid, with things. We want
Mhm,
to reach them where they are. And so each person's situation is going to be, totally unique to their situation, but in each kid's situation is going to be unique. But like just affirming your kids, letting them know that you are there for them no matter what. Creating those traditions, like you said, driving around looking at Christmas lights. That's something our kids love. Just,
yeah.
the houses in the neighborhood that go all out, and we just love to see, oh, let's go there. We're gonna go there, and they make the big plans, and we go drive around. Um, and then like just being able to connect with your children, challenge them to dream big, help them understand what dreams are more fulfilling than others. Um,
Hmm.
just allowing that fully present state, like you were saying, like be present with your kids. Um,
Hmm.
Teach them what contentment looks like. That might be something we have to learn ourselves first. Be curious about why they might push back, instead of, because a lot of times you're like, you don't, I'm trying so hard, you don't understand, but try to be curious about why they're pushing back, and diffusing their anger. And I know that's way easier said than done a lot of times, but trying to go in with that, mindset beforehand. If they're used to seeing things a certain way with Christmas,
Hmm.
that allow that space for them to have pushback, and help be curious about it. That sounds like
Yeah.
you're disappointed in something. Can we talk about your disappointment? What's behind those things might help diffuse, or understand where they're coming from better too. Because I know there can be a lot of pushback if there's a big shift in how Christmas is, but in the past to now,
Yeah.
that can be
And
hard for you and it's hard for them. But giving each other space.
Yes, and understanding too, kids sometimes I know this isn't every situation, but their other parent that's available may have all the funds and they may be love bombing them with extravagant Christmas and you're not able to do the same. And I've talked to mothers where I know that's a problem and that's hard and that's painful. And I think it's okay to grieve that and it's okay to let your kids grieve that too. But in the end, they're going to look back and remember time spent with them
Mm-hmm.
and you hold space for them to acknowledge that it's not really the gifts they're feeling painful about, it's something else
Yeah.
deep inside. And sometimes kids just, I mean, hey, I can't even figure out what I'm upset about sometimes. I think it's this little thing over here, but
Yeah.
really it's just something that symbolizes something so much deeper that's
Mm-hmm.
going on deep in my heart. And our kids are the same way. And so it's just not about the gifts, it's something else. So I love what you said about holding space. I think that's so
Yeah.
important. And space for yourself too. It's
Yeah.
okay.
I was like, it's
Hard.
both ways, and in an age appropriate way, helping them understand that you're trying to do your best. Things were different, and now things are not the way it was, and it's hard for everybody. And but
Mhm.
modeling, giving them space will help them learn how to give space for other people as well as you down the road. But like helping facilitate like lifelong learning. Maybe there's a historical location in your area that you to get better rooted in your area to understand
Yeah.
the history of your area that might help, doing stuff like that for like say we're going to go on this little trip down the road. I didn't even know there was this fort of whatever, and then we're going to go explore it, and that's something we can do for Christmas break or whatever. um
Yes.
or like have them help you plan meals for the holidays. And so,
Mm.
what do they actually like versus what is always served? Maybe they don't like what's always been served because that's just been what it is. You can start making your new traditions for your family too, and not have to do what you always did before. And it's okay to change traditions, but keep the same, feel. Um, and then, just as a family, remembering why we're celebrating Christmas. Um, and maybe it's just having a journal between you and your kids. Each kid has a journal between you, and that gives them some more ability to be more open with their feelings. Sometimes it's easier for kids to write things down and then
Yes.
give it to you and then not have to say them out loud to you. And then that way you can do that way too. And that could be a
Mhm.
Christmas gift, a new tradition starting. Um, so there's lots of ideas, but it's really contending with that pull for buying things. It's that's a lot of work on the inside too.
Yes. I like that. It's viewed as an opportunity to heal versus an opportunity to go to see, to look underneath of the things and be okay,
Mhm.
let's find the meaning of what the season is together and let's heal what's going on that's making me feel the compulsion and drive that I have to provide XYZ or to give my child a happy childhood, or
Yeah.
whatever's on. So I love what you shared there. Thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
And then we'll go on to our final question is we need to take care of ourselves too.
Hmm.
I said we're being triggered during the holidays. Triggers are often high, as we were talking about during the holidays, as different things happen. Sometimes parents are isolated from their kids during the holidays, and that is so grievous. You've got all types of situations going on. And I'm just curious, what are some ways that we can nourish our mind, body, and spirit? Because a lot of times when we're very triggered, it's easy to look for other comforts and to self-soothe with overspending or overindulging our kids or trying to do whatever we can to try to medicate what's really going on. So what are some ways we can nourish ourselves so we don't get to that place of desperation and be like, oh, I gotta have this or I gotta do this, and then we're in further.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then you're all stressed out after when the
yes.
when the bills come or whatever. Um, yes, that's I think at the root of what the tension around Christmas holidays or different holidays. I mean, there's traumaversaries where that's a whole level of trauma inside your body, um,
Mm-hmm.
versus a mindset. So there's like there can be lots of different ways that this can be approached, but like just giving yourself grace, taking a few breaths, calming down of that urge to act. That there's the internal family systems is a way of thinking of things, and there's like a
Mm.
front line of that urge to do something is usually a protection of that wounding. So there's a wound below that urge. And that,
Mm.
like you said, it may not match up one for one, but it's trying to distract you from hurting that wound again. And so it's doing whatever it can to get your distractions. So if you can calm yourself and like let that part of your body know, I understand you're protecting something. I want
Mm.
to understand what that is so that we can heal it together. And I don't want to continue to harm that wound or whatever it is. Sometimes just that communicating that to that part will help it calm down enough to, okay, I can see what's behind it, and just be genuinely curious.
Yeah.
Judgmental, self blaming isn't going to help you in the long term. And I know a lot of times that's how we've been conditioned to think about ourselves. We have to be perfect, have to perform, have to do all these things. Um, but in the long term, just being genuinely curious about what that wound is and where it came from
Mm-hmm.
um, will go a long way. There's a process called LERC, LERC. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
It makes a lot of sense once you do it. It's a life event revelation chart, but it's basically you have an event that happens. So you get that triggering event, and you're trying to like, okay, this event is trying to get me to do this behavior. So this behavior, what are those feelings that go along with that behavior? And then, so what are the current belief system that's driving those feelings and that behavior? So it's like that you're digging in deeper. So that's just identifying the pain. And then it's okay, we're going to take a reality check of this is what my current belief system is. What are my goals? What would I want myself to be doing? My behavior. What do I want my behavior to look like? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean my feelings would need to be towards this activating event? And then start to challenge that belief system that was driving your pain and stuff in the beginning. So it's giving you just stepping you back into understanding what happened and trying to figure out a better way that you would want to approach that situation. Um, so it takes time. You can journal it, and you're not going to always get the answer, but the more often you calm and slow down and kind of walk yourself through that, the easier
Mm-hmm.
it's going to kind of get, and your body's going to start trusting you that you're really curious. You're not just trying to be done with it and move on. Like there's some seriously wounded parts that can be really deeply in there. And it's like, it's like, I just want to be done healing, just get it all out.
Yeah.
But that will overwhelm your system and shut you back down. So it's like, just doing one thing at a time, even if it's a tiny shift in your mindset, celebrate it, because that you were so rooted where you were that one step out of that stream is
Mm-hmm.
huge and towards your healing, because that's going to start rewiring the way your brain works, the way your thought process works, the way your feelings are attached to those core operating belief systems that we're not even aware of. Like you said, like they're so deeply held, you don't even know, you know, why you're doing what you're doing. That's just how we were created. Helps us, because slowing down, you don't always have the opportunity to slow down. You have to do the things to do to
Yep.
live your life. But when you do have a chance to like maybe jot something down, I'm going to think about this tonight before I go to bed, or, this is really keeps coming up. I've noticed this keeps coming up. Even noticing is a really big step towards addressing your inside, the trauma and stuff. And like, I know that sometimes church and reading the Bible and God and stuff can be traumatic, because there's been a
Mm-hmm.
filter by which you've been taught who Jesus is. And if he doesn't feel safe, um, to invite him in yet, there's still work that you can do on helping your self-worth, your um, there's a book called Mirror Work,
Yes, I've heard of that.
and it's a little book, and it has a little part to teach you how to help with your kids too. But it does a really good job of helping you connect with you, and it's really really hard to look yourself in the mirror in the eyes and say these things out loud. Um, it's just like loving yourself or being curious about yourself, or this is feels really weird, but you're talking to yourself in the mirror. This work isn't for everybody. Like, we have people with big egos and already
Yeah.
feel entitled and stuff. They don't need to do this kind of work. But when we're dealing with somebody who's been beaten down and had their power taken away, and we're trying to build them back up to operating in a healthy manner, some of this stuff is really, really helpful. And maybe, going back into the Bible and reading the things, what God says about you, is super helpful. Um, there's a bunch that you can like Google this, like, who am I, like, in the Bible, and it has all these Bible verses and stuff. But there's a lady on YouTube, Hosanna Wong, Hosanna, and her last name is Wong. She has a
Mm-hmm.
video called I Have a New Name, and it is
Oh.
so impactful. I would listen to that over and over when like, the way I was feeling about myself. And it's a spoken word thing where, it's like poetry basically. But spoken word, very powerful. And that I would highly recommend listening to that if that's something you're open to, of hearing God's word. What does he say about me, and how to
Mm.
replace those lies with his truth? But it's in a very impactful way she does it. I just love it. um,
Wow.
so it's just fighting the lies of not being enough, fighting the lies of I'm
Mm.
not worthy, or, replacing those with truth. So whether that truth comes from the mirror work, just to get you to a place where you can be confident of who you are. And now I'm okay with addressing that ugly filter that I have seen with the Bible, because now I am more confident in my ability to discern. Now I can approach that and dismantle the wrong that I was taught about the Bible. Or maybe you don't have that big filter, and you can, or both of them, either way is good. Just getting yourself rooted in who you are, who you were created to be. Genesis it tells us we were created very good. And
Yes.
sin
Love
came
that.
into our life, but we're not created to be sinful.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was taught that we're inherently evil, we're inherently sinful. And the only reason why God can even stand to be with us is because Jesus covered us. And I'm still bad underneath, but Jesus is up there. So, that does not do anything for for who you are
Mm-hmm.
as a person. And he was not created to be inherently sinful. You are created to be very good. And
I,
the world we are in has sin in it, and there's
mm-hmm.
consequences to sin. And we can embody that, or we can reject that, and we work with God, like Jesus, how to work that out in our lives and be sanctified. But we are not inherently evil. And so I think that was a huge mind shift for me, from what I was taught growing up to how I can approach the Bible and Jesus now, because it changed everything for me, with understanding that I was created to be good.
Mm.
Jesus loved
That's
women, like, and children, and reading the Bible through how Jesus taught, like, it's a totally different filter of how God views people.
that is very true. That's really good. I love that what you said. Very, very good and very true. We are good. We are good. We
Yes,
were created written on our hearts that way, and Jesus is redeeming and restoring us to know our identity as He created us.
yes,
Um, And so I love those things that you shared. I'm looking forward to looking into them myself, and just I'm hopeful that people listening to this really feel encouraged and inspired that the holidays don't have to be a time that we feel extremely stressed. I mean, yes, there's triggers, yes, there's sorrow and there's weeping that's going to happen.
Mhm.
It's just human, but it can be a time of redemption as well, and that God is taking what we've been through and using it to heal us. It's an opportunity to address the triggers with curiosity. I love that. A friend that's a therapist I know always says that. Whenever I look at them, like, I'm a failure. I failed here. And she's like, stop. You didn't fail. I
Yeah.
want you to look at curiosity. Look at curiosity. So don't get upset at yourself when you feel you fail and mess up and spend too much or do this. Just look at it with curiosity and show yourself and your kids grace because you're loved.
And tears
But
are good and
yeah,
healing. You have different tears for different kind of crying. The
yes.
tears of joy are different than the tears of grief, and they are literally removing toxins, and like they are actively helping you heal when you cry. So that experiencing that grief is hard and painful, but going through it and not around it, going through it is what's going to help the healing process too, and allowing the kids to experience their grief too. That
Yeah,
coming just that safe place like we talked about.
absolutely. Thank you for sharing that today. And if anybody has any questions, I can link also intentional money coaching if you want as well. Or if you have any questions, just let us know in the comments and I can tag April and she can come back and answer them. And so we're just praying for each and every one of you. We're excited to announcing we have Giving Tuesday coming up, and this year we'll be providing 100 gift cards of $100 to the women who we have known that are in most in need in our advocacy and support groups. So that's coming up. So that's something I very much look forward to. It's something very near and dear to my heart, a way to engage and give back. And their title this year is "It's More Blessed to Give Than to Receive," and so finding ways to get back to others in ways that you've been blessed, and it's gives the greatest joy just to know that you are part of meeting other people's needs around you. So if you're looking for that, it's coming up November 20th.
It's exciting.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us today. And thank you, everybody else who's joined us too. I hope this was an encouragement to you and praying for each and every one of you watching this today. Bye.